So it sounds like some of the Leafs are kind of mad. And honestly, good. You know what I don't like being told when I need to relax? Hey man, relax. Really? Because I feel like doing the opposite of relaxing and you're making it worse. And as a fan, I've been pretty aggravated about the Leafs over the past few games, and judging by your comments, you have been too. And then I see Frederik Andersen's comments after the Leafs lose 3-2 in overtime to the Philadelphia Flyers, and I go, oh, he's one of us. Let's talk about a couple of the things he said and the implications and how it was handled. Before we get started, real briefly on the NHL 18 Snyder Hockey Cup. It's definitely something you should look into, and by look into, I mean click the link in the description of this video, because you could be playing NHL 18 and hanging out with me in Philadelphia, which sounds like fun, I think. Come to think of it, I've never hung out with me. But it's going to be a lot of fun, it's for a good cause, and there's a $17,500 prize pool. The NHL 18 Snyder Hockey Cup, check it out in the description down below, Snyder NHL 18. The first quote that started making its rounds on Twitter and everyone started freaking out about, we gotta regroup. We gotta figure out who wants to commit to playing for the team. Now you can frame that however you want, and you can be like, oh, Freddie Andersen wants to see someone traded. In the heat of the moment, like when you're super mad that your team just lost, you might read that quote and be like, yeah, and he's right. They should trade everybody. There's nothing wrong with that quote at all. If you're gonna win the Stanley Cup, if you're gonna be a contender at all, you gotta commit to playing as a team. It's true, and it's passionate, but it's not pointed, so I think it's fine. That quote was not the juicy one to me. Here's part of the exchange, the juiciest part anyway, between Sportsnet's Chris Johnston and Freddie Andersen. CJ, frustrating for you, Fred, to see a 2-on-1 come down when you guys are on the power play? Freddie, yeah, I think a lot of guys on the bench too, pretty frustrated not being on the power play. And seeing that kind of effort, I think we got to look each other in the eyes here and determine where we want to go from here. Okay. The first one was pretty general. You can interpret that as, well, yeah, we all got to play together as a team. Me too, the goalie. This one is a lot more pointed. And Freddie's observation, I guess, is there are players on the bench who wished they could have been in that position, which is very strange since Freddie was not on the bench. He spends the least amount of time on the bench. He's the starting goaltender. That's kind of his thing. Well, who were the Leafs on the ice? One of them was Morgan Riley. I know that because he was the only guy back on the 2-on-1. Who were the forwards? It was the unit that has actually been good up until recently. Nazem Kadri, JVR, Tyler Bozak, and Mitch Marner. Well, on December 19th, JVR had 3 power play points against the Carolina Hurricanes, but since then, he has gone 12 straight games without registering a single power play point. Not just power play goal, power play point. And just 2 goals, 0 assists in the last 8 games. Tyler Bozak, 4 points in his last 9, that's okay, but again, 12 straight games without a power play point. Mitch Marner has 3 power play points in his last 12 games, which is not great, but it's better than JVR Bozak, but 0 goals and 2 assists in his last 9 games, only 1 of those assists on the power play. And over his last 10 games, Nazem Kadri, 1 single solitary point, and it was a goal, and it was on the power play. Worth noting that he's only got 1 goal since November period, and it wasn't even scored with a stick. Also worth noting, Freddie might have been a little bit mad at Mitch Marner for the first goal because it was entirely his fault. So those are the guys who were on the ice that Freddie might have been mad at if he was mad at the guys on the ice. Who are the guys on the bench? The first guy my head went to, okay, who was on the ice? This guy, oh, Matthews wasn't on the ice, which is something Leafs fans have been yelling about recently, and maybe it's been talked about internally as well. And you can usually find it on social media. Freddie and Austin like to hang out together. There's nothing wrong with that. And I went and looked at the numbers, and overall, Austin Matthews is tied for second on the team in power play ice time per game. JVR is first with 2 minutes and 18 seconds per. Morgan Riley and Matthews have 2:16 each. And I was like, has this changed much lately? And the answer is still not really no. He's no longer tied for third, but he's not so far behind that it's really worth noting. And what I notice is, the top line is usually Hyman and Matthews and Nylander. Those guys actually draw a bunch of penalties. And I don't have the numbers to back this up, but I find when that line is out for, let's say, 30 seconds, 45 seconds, and then they draw a penalty because they were flying around the zone, Babcock doesn't just throw them back out there. He puts them out second, which in effect kind of makes them the second power play unit in that case. Now, everyone's been complaining about Leo Komarov on the power play. He's averaged 39 seconds of power play ice time per game over the last 7 games. Is it him? Was it Matthews, despite the fact that the numbers suggest Matthews gets plenty of power play ice time? Was it somebody else? Or was it Freddie just being pissed off? And here's the thing. I highly recommend you go to the Toronto Maple Leafs YouTube channel, go watch what Freddie Andersen had to say after this game, and then go watch the practice clips from the morning after. Babcock spoke, Matthews spoke, Bozak spoke, and Gardner spoke. You can say I'm blowing this out of proportion, but clearly the rest of the Toronto media thought it was an important enough quote to to ask each and every one of those 4 guys about at least once. Babcock to me was the most telling and the most comic. Now I'm not going to transcribe what Babcock said because it was a little disjointed and I think it's better heard than read. But one thing he said, very pointed, he goes, I thought we had good feistiness in our group post-game. He's not stupid, man. He knows what you're going to ask. This is his first answer, by the way. And then he starts talking about, not super direct, but he alludes to the fact that I wish those comments had remained in-house. He's not mad that the comments exist. He wants the team to be mad at each other. Or at least be mad with themselves. Be mad with the fact that they're not playing to the effort that the Toronto Maple Leafs should be putting out. But he wasn't that thrilled with it getting out there, and I want to show you a tweet. He works for the Evil 3 letter, but you know what? He's a former Leaf, and a good point is a good point. Jeff O'Neill, I like Anderson's passion, but the comments should be kept in-house. No one sewered him when he stunk the joint out at the start of last season. Now, the most kind thing Jeff O'Neill did there was say last season, because with the exception of a handful of games, Anderson has stunk at the beginning of both of his Leaf seasons. And then recovered. He was good. He's good now. But he is absolutely right. What Anderson said was not wrong, but again, if you listen to more of what Babcock said, he liked that dialogue. He liked that the teammates were talking to each other and even that they were getting kind of mad, but he just wished it stayed in the locker room, or at very least on the bench. Now, this is a weird place for me because I'm in the media. I don't even like to say it, but I should want quotes like this to come out. They're juicy. They give you something to talk about. I'm making a video about it right now and you're watching it and I'm talking. And then there's the Leaf fan part of me who's like, you shouldn't have said that because God forbid that there's some crazy internal rift that tears this team apart. Here's what I think realistically. The Leafs have blown a bunch of games recently that they didn't need to. And they're kind of mad. One of them said a mostly true thing out loud in front of a microphone and shouldn't have ought have done that. They could have kept it in the locker room. But now they kind of have to address it, don't they? Sometimes in a fight you say nasty things. That's kind of what a fight is. But if you hug it out and focus on improving afterwards, you'll come out better for it, stronger for it. You'll have a better bond. So from the media perspective and my Leafs fan perspective, I'm going to put my rose-colored glasses on and choose to look at this from a positive perspective. What do you think of Freddie Andersen's comments? Have you seen them yet, or did you just read them? I highly encourage that you watch them. Do you think it's a big deal at all, or just blown out of proportion? Do you think it's a bad thing that this is out there? Or do you think the Leafs will be stronger for it because now they got to address some of their flaws? Let me know what you think. But now, that is it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you like this video. Click subscribe if you really liked it. Tell all your friends. And hopefully, after next game, they're talking about, 2 points because they won. Winning's better.